Hello, hello. This is the second installment of the IJV Firestarter chat series. Second one we're doing on Instagram Live. So thank you for being here. My name is Aaron Lakoff, and I am the communications and media coordinator with IJV. So we're going to get started in just a second. We have the pleasure of having with us today Ariana Katz, who is with the Radical Jewish Calendar Project. So we're going to bring Ariana on in just a little bit. We're going to be talking with her all about what that calendar is. We've got a brand new edition out for the year 5781 right here. So that's pretty exciting. I'm at home in Montreal. It's rainy outside. I've got some plants with me. It's getting to be those fall days where it's dark and it's the sun is setting a lot earlier. So I'm gonna try to brighten things up a little bit too. And the Radical Calendar Project is gonna help us in that for sure. So let's bring Ariana into this in just a second. So just bear with us. All right. Wonderful. Hi, Ariana.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm in a car, which means I'm out in the world, which is a very strange thing. But
it's funny. I always see these videos that people are posting like in their car. It's like a sound booth too.
it's nice. Yeah. How's the sound of my voice?
Wonderful. So thank you so much for being with us today. For like I was just saying, this is the second edition of our Firestarter chat series. The first one we did last week with our friend Kareem Samara, who's an amazing Palestinian musician based in London, and this is part of a whole series that we're doing. Talking with people, whether it's Jews, Palestinians, people in the resistance, people fighting in liberation struggles throughout the diaspora, talking about culture, talking about art, talking about all sorts of exciting projects. I just want to plug some of them just before we jump deep into it about the Radical Calendar, the Radical Jewish Calendar Project. So people can go to our website, ijvcanada.org/Firestarter chats, and get the whole lowdown on this series. Later this week, actually this Thursday, we're going to have a Palestinian artist, Nidal El-Heri, who's going to be joining us for a webinar and an artist talk, which is going to be really exciting because Nidal, if you've ever been out in the world and been to Palestine solidarity protests, or if you've seen street art in different cities like in Oakland or in Montreal or in Venezuela, he's done some amazing Palestine solidarity murals. And you'll probably recognize Nidal's work. So we're really excited. He's going to be joining us from Amman, Jordan. That's this Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. 47 Soul, an amazing Palestinian band, are going to be joining us for one of these Firestarter chats. The Trafe podcast, dear friends of ours. And Ariana, I know you've been on Trafe before, so so that's going to be fun. And Rafif Ziada, who is a wonderful Palestinian poet and spoken word artist, is going to be joining us October 29th. So again, it's too much info just to rattle off all in one go, but I do want you to go check out ijvcanada.org/Firestarter projects. Firestarter chats. And you can get all the info there. And this series is also part of our annual fundraising drive. So, it's these events are always free, of course, to put on, always free to join, but they're never totally free to do. And so if you support the work of IJV, we do Palestine solidarity work, we do BDS work, but we also do a lot of work around anti-Semitism education, we do anti-fascist work, we do as much as possible Indigenous solidarity work. And I did want to say a quick word that the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs, in fact, the women from the Wet'suwet'en Nation, are currently doing a blockade of a drill site fighting against the Coastal GasLink pipeline on their unceded territory in northern BC. And we've done some work with the Wet'suwet'en, supporting their struggle. We're hopefully going to have Jen Wickham from the Wet'suwet'en Nation back on for one of these Firestarter chats. So keep your ear to the ground for that. But if you can support this work, please do. It's really, really crucial. So you can go to ijvcanada.org/donate if you like what you're seeing in these Firestarter chats. Anyways, enough with that. Ariana, Katz from the Radical Jewish Calendar Project, thank you so much for being with us today. Before we dive into the calendar project, which again I'm going to hold up, and unfortunately the Instagram live screen is quite small, but we will try to like bring in a bit of visuals. Tell us about yourself.
Oh, sure. I'm really glad to be with you, and the people who are watching. Hello, and prayers up to everyone in the blockade who's doing that work right now, taking that risk for themselves and their tribal family, and also for all of us who are impacted by the risk that they take. So I am here in Charm City, Baltimore, Poway lands, and I'm the rabbi of a congregation called Hinenu on Instagram, and that is like the core focus of, I think, how I get to spend so much of my time, even through pandemic, getting to be the rabbi of this beautiful community that is praying and organizing and caring for one another, as all those three things being so core to and integrated into one another. That's really how I spend my days. I grew up in Philadelphia, on Lenape land, and I went to the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College before moving down to Baltimore to found the community. And that's one of the many schemes and projects that I've been grateful to participate in. You named a couple of them, the Kaddish podcast, getting to sometimes hang out and play with the kids at Trafe, and most of all, to found and build Hinenu.
Awesome. Yeah, and shout out to Baltimore too. It's an amazing city. Had the pleasure of spending quite a bit of time there over the last year because my partner was living down there for a brief period, and I loved it every time I had a chance to go down. Fortunately, not a lot of traveling these days for obvious reasons, but it gives us, more chance to do events like this where we can be together virtually, if not in the same room with each other.
And they're like, come spend a Shabbos by us, like totally welcome. There's something very sweet about being in a movement family together. I think that it like comes up again when we talk about the calendar, but just learning from similar teachers, learning from like similar movement work, and being in various struggles that hopefully are interlocking. There's like a sweetness and an intimacy there, even if we've not met. Come stay for Shabbos. You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that. Someday when we have a vaccine for this horrible virus, and the border opens again, and we're able to travel a little bit more. Well, let's talk about the Radical Jewish Calendar. So this is an amazing project. A couple of things that it made me think of are, there was already a few other kind of radical calendar projects out there, not necessarily Jewish ones, but it kind of makes me think like when I was a little baby anarchist many years ago, I would get really excited every year because there was like the slingshot organizers that they put out of the Bay Area, and they were just like really fun little notebooks where you could jot down, which protests that you were going to go to, which meetings you had, and they had all sorts of, radical history in them too, which was a lot of fun. And then I do want to give a shout out as well to the Certain Days calendar, the political prisoners calendar. So this has been an amazing project, probably going on 2 decades, a calendar they put out every year, done by people on the inside and people on the outside of prisons, and always to raise money for incredible prison abolition projects. And again, these calendars are fun because you go through them and there's like amazing art, like regardless of what month it is, and then always all sorts of, again, interesting radical history, right? Like what happened on which date.
Right.
But then you guys come along and you start the Radical Jewish Calendar Project, which I think in a way, like at least for me, is building on some of those traditions of other radical calendars. But of course, this is unique because it's a Jewish calendar, so it's based on Hebrew dates and the Hebrew calendar, and it's got a lot more art and history in there that is reflective of radical traditions within the Jewish diaspora. So can you tell us a little bit about what is the Radical Jewish Calendar and how did it come together?
Great. Yeah, and love a slingshot. I think I prefer the big version. It's hard to. Yeah. I think what is true about the Radical Jewish Calendar is in the legacy that you named of slingshot and certain, and even like the Teaching for Change, the curriculum planner. And it's not new there to help us tell what time it is in movement history. And it's also deeply lineage of Jewish calendars that are printed every year. Tell you what time candle lighting is. It tells you when the holidays fall. And there's this great book for any calendar nerds that happen to be Jewish, called A Path by Elisheva Karlbach. And it has all this amazing archival documents from calendars 300, 400, 500 plus, from as soon as the printing press started to now, even handwritten ones, because the particular mathematics of where we are in the harvest, how the leap year is, ensuring that when we celebrate Sukkot, it's actually a harvest, that it's actually spring during Passover. It's a important interconnection, which is like calendar math. All of this is to say, those calendars have been fundamental for how Jewish life has been able to happen, but along with printing out what time the holiday, it's also secular information on it. And I think for me, and maybe some of that was very strange, sorry. The feeling of connecting our lives and our religious lives sometimes feels counterintuitive because of how the Jewish community says that you have to have unquestioning, unwavering support for the state of Israel to be an authentic Jew, or you have to with in order to succeed in the larger Jewish world, if you can be read as white, if you can assimilate, if you can take advantage of that privilege. And this feeling of separation exists, and we say like, oh, my political life is over there, my religious life is over there. But what I loved about continuing to learn from this book that I mentioned, Elisheva Karlbach's A Palace in Time, is that like these historic calendars also said what the Christians around us at any given time, what holidays they were celebrating. So we knew when to like batten down the hatches and like when to say, happy holidays. And also political yard sites, like things that were happening around us that we needed to remember beyond just the religious lives of our neighbors. And so the Radical Jewish Calendar is simultaneously new and of this moment and of an immediate political lineage. And also like it's, sorry to my mates, but like it's not that interesting. It's like very old school to print a new calendar every year for a specific community, for it to be narrow, like for it to be a narrow specific community with particular interests and create a calendar for that is like Jews have been doing it for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, maybe one of the basics I wanted to cover for some of our non-Jewish friends that might be tuning into this, can you actually talk a little bit about the Jewish calendar and the Jewish year and how it differs from what people might be more used to, like the Gregorian calendar, which starts January 1st. The Jewish calendar, of course, starts like the new year, Rosh Hashanah, which just happened a couple weeks ago. So we're in the first month right now, which is Tishrei.
Oh, yeah.
Art for Tishrei. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about the Jewish year and the Jewish calendar.
So the Jewish calendar began 25 days ago, and is a lunar solar calendar. So the reason that we aren't just a fully lunar calendar is because many of I love this, it's like check it out, zooming in and out. The holidays that happen are agricultural season and what's happening in the world around, just in terms of the and the harvest and what's happening to the sun and the moon. And so in order to make sure that things happen in then that we expect them to and need them to, we adjust it there's a 19-year cycle with 7 leap years. Don't fact check. I think that is correct. And so every so often, we add an additional month to adjust for time to ensure that we're celebrating Passover in the spring, which is a celebration of liberation, of the Exodus, of freedom, and of spring and renewal. So it's a calendar that cycle 28 to 30 days. And the Jewish day begins at sundown. So you might have noticed, like, Erev Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the holiday, so it starts in the sundown at evening. Shabbat begins Friday night. And we're counting is the year 5781. I think it's important to know that to mark Jewish self resistance against assimilation and Christian supremacy and hegemony, because I think there are so many different teachers who share with us that how you tell time and how you write history shapes what people care about and what they know. And so to mark Jewish time, and to not just fit Jewish time into a Gregorian, literally named after Pope Gregory, is that right? I don't really spend time thinking about the secular calendar, but to actually follow the Jewish calendar is just my values and my inherited or adopted ancestral tradition says that, like, this is how I orient life. These are the things that matter, and resisting assimilation, resisting letting go of our culture, or our cultures, in order to fit into the way that the larger machine of the world tells time, is itself an act of resistance, which is why it's so important to us that our calendar flips on the Jewish month. So Rosh Chodesh is an incredibly holy time when the moon is new, the sky is dark, and we start over. And it's like a little festival, just a little personal festival every month. And for our on Rosh Chodesh, at the beginning of the new month, is actually sets us apart from other calendars that flip beginning of the secular month. And so what we're saying is, like, I want to know when Rosh Chodesh Tishrei is. I don't want to have to fit it in to when, September 18th is. And even in the layout and how we are and we pull this calendar together, it's doing that.
Yeah. And again, we're speaking with Rabbi Ariana Katz, who is the layout editor of the Radical Jewish Calendar Project. And I was just looking at, like, the roster of artists you have, and just imagining how much of a huge labor this must be, a labor of love to every year network with all these incredible radical Jewish artists. Some of the names I recognize, some of the names I don't. J.B. Bragger is maybe one of those artists that people are now familiar seeing in radical Jewish circles. I was really heartened to see Maya Brown from the incredible band Brivole, who's done events with IJV as well too. Maya's piece in here, I think, is really it's difficult. It's a difficult piece because I think it really reflects, like, I'll just hold it up. It kind of reflects what a lot of us are going through right now in terms of dealing with COVID-19 and the pandemic. Can you talk about, like, the process that goes into finding the artists and working with the artists, and basically how it all comes together in terms of some of the amazing art that's in here? And as you're answering, I'll just kind of flip through again some of the art.
So the Radical Jewish Calendar team is myself, Rabbi Jessica Rosenberg, who This was her brainchild, along with some other pals in the movement, who works on the content. Alyssa Martell, who is our arts editor. And then a new addition to our team is Davis Esther Engel, who is works on layout and graphics with me. And so the three and now four of us every year get together sometime in the late winter, and we say, okay, time to talk about the calendar. And when it was three people who lived in Philly, it was easier for one person to make a pot of chili. And now we meet on Zoom and think about the timeline. So the ship is pretty self-running at this point, and we're really lucky to be able to sell our calendar through Buy Olympia, which means that you can go, and we just restocked. We sold out 1,500 calendars in like 3 weeks, which is amazing. And so we did another smaller press, so you can go on to Buy get yours if you haven't yet. And so
I'm really happy that you guys restocked, by the way. That's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, until we get a radical Jewish calendar to everyone who wants them, like, why not? A chicken in every pot. So because when we finally finish the calendar, and it always happens in Mercury retrograde, so someone's computer crashes, but when we finally the files, we send them to the printer, the union worker owner, and then they send it to Buy Olympia. So that's cool. So when you've got a question about your calendar, Pat is answering them, and we don't know anything about it. The process of selecting art, we figure out our timeline by when we need to submit the calendar, and we put out a call for artists, and we have such a juicy pile of amazing radical Jewish artists that we're in the process of trying to discern like what comes next for the calendar, like what else might be sustaining. So if you've got ideas and you're watching this and you want to like make wish lists, please let us know what else you need that you think we might be able to help with. Because there's such an amazing resource of these artists. Some are recurring, some are brand new, and we put the call out on our social, and we pull together a team of the four of us, and then previous artists who can then anonymously assess and rank what might be a good fit for this year. And it sucks. Like, that process sucks, because this was JB made this for Shavuot that Hinenu and other sibling synagogues organized, where we stayed up from 6 to 6 across the US time zone, so US and Canada, and had just everyone from around the world studying like radical Jewish Torah for Shavuot. So this image is of a Zoom that was used for that. The art selection process sucks because like these artists are amazing, and there's so many more amazing artists, and you only have 12, maybe 13 months and a cover. So once we finally do that, and we try to make sure that we are prioritizing new artists, that we are that themes that are resident, that we're sensing are resident within the lefty Jewish world, voices that are underrepresented within the lefty Jewish world, or deserving of being centered, and also artists whose voices deserve to be leveraged and centered. And once we do our best to make our selections, this is Joey Ramona, who's a tattoo artist, who's doing really cool Yiddish tattoos. Not the first Jewish tattoo artist we've published in the calendar. Anyway, we figure that out. We get the art, and we'll guesses, soliciting and selecting dates, and then Dave and I while watching a million episodes of TV, and that's how we make the calendar. And also really important to Jess from the very beginning, and to all of us, in ensuring that artists are paid for their art. We, I think, as a group, really believe that the Jewish left deserves beautiful things, and that like bread and roses, that the art and beauty and mitzvah, making necessary things beautiful, is a fundamental part of how we win, and supporting artists who are working artists, who are artists in addition to how they work for livelihood. Like, paying people for their artistic labor is a real value of the calendar. And so that's where your money is going every year, for our labor and for the labor of our artists.
Awesome. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have up on your wall. People can find the Radical Jewish Calendar at radicaljewishcalendar.com. And as Ariana just mentioned, it was sold out, but there's going to be a reprint, and so you can still get your hands on it. I'm really, I'm stoked that I got mine again this year. Even the cover, like I just love the cover. It's kind of this beautiful leaf design. I think it's very apt for like the fall season, Rosh Hashanah, like the Jewish New Year.
That leaf was made by Dominique Butler, who's a Hinenu member, though it was, I removed myself from the assessment, and it's a canna leaf. So we love that very much.
Nice.
I'm kind of, I have a really ridiculous story that I want to share, so let me know when there's time for it.
Please. Well, why don't you go ahead? Share the story.
Okay, cool. And also to name that the calendar is sliding scale, so from 12 to 36, and that feels important so that as we're able to both pay artists for their work and get a calendar to as many people as who need them, we try to do our best to hold the two. So it's from a couple of years ago, and I can't remember it, so if you think I'm putting you on blast, I'm not, because I don't remember who it was. But there are some like images, and hegemonic leftist culture, sometimes not great, and sometimes like a great way to keep each other safe, because there are symbols and images that reflect investment. And I heard the story once about someone was on a date and they were like, I don't know about this person, like they're okay, like they're cute, but like I don't know. So they go back to their house and they walk into the kitchen and they see on the wall a radical Jewish calendar. And so they say, oh, okay, so this person's like in a political world that I am. And it was actually like vouching for the person. And I like to think that we like brought a little bit more love and pleasure into the world that night because of the radical Jewish calendar. So here's hoping. But I think like what it symbolizes to me, besides like trying to get people laid by telling them what the Jewish time is that that there's like a sense of community that's brought together by having symbols and images and good art. And like there are other beautiful leftist calendars, like Rebecca Erev and Nomi Lamb just did a day planner called Golden Dreams of Olam Haba, and it's shiny and it's gorgeous. Like there are so many different things that we could create, and I feel really energized and proud of what it means that the radical Jewish calendar is one of the things that are in our homes, and that we are, like is a familiar object, especially now we feel like so far and wretched from each other that we're building collective language, and that we're building collective remembrance together. And that's a really holy thing. And so I love the story, both for the small scale and the big scale.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I mean, I think one of the special things about radical calendars for me is like a calendar just in and of itself is a very mundane object. And then especially, those of us who are kind of really tied to the clock, maybe those of us who work 9-to-5 jobs or really drained jobs, it's like we're so used to just like looking at the calendar, and then you're just kind of like, maybe you're just crossing dates off until your next vacation, or like you're waiting for the weekend to roll around, right? And there's this thing that I love. It's like, you don't hate Mondays, you hate capitalism, right? And I think what radical calendars do is they allow us to kind of like revision time, in the sense of when you can look at something like the radical Jewish calendar, or again, I want to give a shout out to the certain days calendar, the political prisoner calendar. It's filled with all this radical history, and so you can look at your birthday, or you can look at your friend's birthday, or your partner's birthday, or the current day that it is right now, and then you just get like a little snippet. I'm just looking up for today. Today is the 13th of October, the 25th of Tishrei. Okay, 1989, birthday of AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think I knew that because of social media and people wishing AOC a happy birthday today. So it's just these like little snippets, these really special things that bring us out of that 9-to-5 grind, or that bring us out of that 7-day cycle, and that remind us that on this day in history, something really special happened, right? Like maybe it was a labor strike, or maybe it was, the birthday of someone really important. And so anyways, I just really appreciate that about calendars like this.
I love that. And I mean, like Shabbat is time out of time. We have built into our Jewish technology the need to stop making and producing. And the idea that is Shabbat in service of making us more productive, or is the week actually in service of getting us to Shabbos, to a time for a utopia outside of capitalism and what our labor can create. And we just remembered Grace Lee Boggs of blessed memory this week, I think on Monday. And she's famous for asking this question: what time is it on the clock of the world? Husband. And a radical calendar can zoom us out and ask us, like, what time is it on the clock of the world? Not just in this moment, but what is becoming, what is true? What can your tiny slice of second of reality do to connect you to the second before and the second after? And I think that's what time telling, especially with radical calendars, can do.
Thank you for that. Yeah. So we're about to wrap things up, but before we go, we're speaking again with Ariana Katz from the Radical Jewish Calendar Project. I know, I mean, it's a difficult time for the world. It's a difficult time north of the border. I think it's a particularly difficult time south of the border. I mean, things are looking scary every time, you know, we're looking at the news and we're seeing what's going on. There's this looming election happening in just a few weeks. But what I like to think is, like, beyond the doom and gloom and beyond a lot of the fear that we're seeing, there's incredible things happening, right? Like it's so important for us all to remember that, like, even despite this horrible pandemic, we've seen, you know, the blossoming of the biggest social movement in US history with Black Lives Matter, right? And there's ongoing Indigenous resistance on the day-to-day. There's ongoing, like, queer and trans resistance and women's resistance. And I mean, I guess in closing, like, if you wanted to either, like, shout out some exciting things that you're seeing around you, so we can leave this, I mean, this has been a very positive conversation, but just, like, organizing that you're around and that you're excited about, share any of that with us.
Oh, cool. That's a great way to end any conversation. We should bring this practice into our regular life. I think I'm feeling really excited about the mutual aid networks that are cropping up, in addition to ones that have already been existent in small scales. I live across from a community center. There's a mutual aid network that's just, like, hustling. And I think that, you know, if you've been familiar with Food Not Bombs, expand it through a pandemic. I think the alternative economies and alternative modes of care is really...
Oh no, Ariana, I might have lost you. Are you still there? Can you still hear me? Hello. Okay, maybe this is the world and technology telling me that this is maybe the place to end this conversation. Sorry about that, but that was incredible having Ariana Katz with us. I just moved to a part of my apartment that is a little bit closer to the router. Let me see if I can get Ariana back on just to say bye. So do make sure you check out this incredible radical Jewish calendar. Oh, okay, you're back. Can you hear me? I had lost you for a second. The connection might be a little bit spotty. Oh, it might not be working. Okay. Well, we're gonna let Ariana go again, but again, do go check out the Radical Jewish Calendar for 5781, radicalJewishCalendar.com. Check out the rest of the IJV Firestarter chats series. You can go to ijvcanada.org/Firestarter chats. This Thursday, we're going to be chatting with Palestinian artist Nidal El-Heri. That's going to be incredible. That one's going to be on Zoom. So again, just go to our website, ijvcanada.org. All of the info is up on there. Get your hands on this calendar. It is so beautiful and so incredible. And thank you again, Ariana, for being with us. Sorry about the technical difficulties at the end. Thank you all for being with us. If you enjoy these events, if you enjoy our Firestarter chats, please donate to IJV to support our work, ijvcanada.org/donate. And we'll be back on Thursday